I did have a list, and I'd like to look at Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Senator Whitehouse. I would have said it was fine, but I have some people waiting out there from Minnesota. So thank you very much for being here today, Attorney General Holder. You mentioned the tragedy at Fort Hood in your opening statement, and that terrible crime weighs heavily on all our minds. I was one of several senators on this committee that went to Fort Hood to that memorial service. We had a young man, Cam Jong, who was killed there. He was waiting in line for a physical, ready to deploy. His family had come over from, they were fought in the wars in Laos, then relocated to Thailand, 10 kids in St. Paul, Minnesota. He has 3 himself. And the saddest thing I remember from that memorial service is that family huddled next to his picture, propped next to the combat boots. So we are very interested in a thorough investigation here. I know the Justice Department has a hand in this, and that no stone is left unturned, that we get the results not only for a strong prosecution, but also so that we can make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Well, I think President Obama has given us unequivocal direction that we are to find out what happened there. How do we prevent what happened there from occurring again? And it is our intention to again, share the findings of that inquiry with the committee and with the American people.
Today I want to focus on some of the bread and butter law enforcement issues, but just I wanted to quickly summarize. So much of the questions have been understandably about your decision about the trial. This resonates for me because it was in Minnesota where some diligent citizens caught Moussaoui. So we watched that with great interest, the trial in Virginia. And first of all, of course, my focus is on security, and I think you've talked about how you consulted with the mayor and with the police chief, and Senator Schumer went over that at length. But obviously, most of us are interested in getting these guys. And Senator Leahy mentioned that the conviction rate, I think, is 90%. Is that right?
Yeah,
people tried in
about 94%.
94%, and you feel that you have a strong case. Could you just briefly talk about your decision to do this in New York and why you picked that particular jurisdiction in terms of the expertise of the U.S. attorneys that will be handling that case?
Well, we're going to have a joint team that involves lawyers from the Eastern District of Virginia as well as lawyers from the Southern District of New York. New York is a place that has tried these kinds of cases before. You have a hardened detention facility. You have a hardened courthouse. You have a means by which a person can go from the jail to the courthouse without seeing the light of day. I had a marshal's service report done looking at all of the potential venues if we were going to do this in an Article III court. And the recommendation from the Marshal Service was that this be done in New York City, that is the place that was the most secure and did not have to have any reconstruction work or any construction work done in order to try to harden those facilities. And so for that reason and for other reasons, that was why I made the determination that New York was the appropriate place to try these cases.
Focusing now on some of these domestic issues, Senator Kaufman has a bill on healthcare fraud enforcement. I'm a co-sponsor, a number of us are. I have my own bill with Senator Snowe that complements that bill. And I know in May, and this is a question from me and Senator Kaufman, he's presiding over the Senate. I know that in May, UN Secretary Sebelius created a healthcare fraud prevention and enforcement action team to work on coordinating the federal government's response to this issue. Could you say more about what that group has been working on since it was formed? Because we just had a report, $47 billion lost in Medicare fraud. The health reform that we're working on now must contain provisions that make it easier to go after this kind of fraud because it's an outrageous amount of money.
Yeah, the creation of the HEAT task forces, as we call them, are, I think, critical tools in trying to deal with an immense problem. We have seen the misuse of Medicaid, federal health care funds for procedures that never occur, for devices that are never bought. We've actually seen people who were once engaged in drug dealing and in organized crime activities moving into this area because they determined that it's safer, it's easier, and we are determined to put an end to that. We'll have to work with our partners at HHS. Secretary Sebelius and I have been giving particular attention to this. We made the announcement, I think, in, I believe, April or May, We have already announced significant numbers of arrests that have occurred in a variety of cities. We are in 4 cities now. We're going to be expanding those task forces into other cities as well. This is a national problem.
Right, and I'm hoping we can give you more tools in this bill. And one of the things I found most interesting was the areas where you seem to have hot spots of this crime tend also to be areas that have high-cost health care, disorganized health care systems, which is something we should be looking at as well. Second thing I wanted to raise is the important reauthorization that we're going to be handling in the Violence Against Women Act. Senator Leahy mentioned the rape kit issue and the backlog. There's also other issues as well with the rural services. We had a hearing on this recently, as well as child protection issues. Could you talk about what your priorities will be as we work to reauthorize this important piece of legislation?
If we want to get a handle on the crime problem that we've had success in knocking down to historically low numbers, we have to deal with the problem of violence against women. We have to deal with the problem of children who are exposed to violence and who often see that in a domestic violence context. We have to deal with these issues. This Senate, this Congress, our government 15 years or so ago made a commitment in the Violence Against Women Act. It seems to me that we need to celebrate the successes that we have had, the consciousness that we have raised in our nation, but we need to do more. There are still issues, the whole question of rape kits. I mean, we have to deal with that. We have people on the streets who, because we have not analyzed those kits, are free to commit these acts yet again. The whole question of children who are exposed to violence and who are the victims of violence, I think is part and parcel of this same issue. And if we're ever to get a handle on this crime problem, we have to deal with those who are most vulnerable in a way that we are doing much better than we have, but not as well as I think we can do.
Thank you very much.